Welcome to the Plant-Centered and Thriving podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kitchens. Hello, plant-centered listeners. My name is Ashley, and welcome to the podcast today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. And thank you, as always, for your support. It means so much. So today I have with me Allison Clark. She is a health and wellness coach specializing in helping women with thyroid disorders through her business called Empowered Health. After her own diagnosis with Hashimoto's hypothyroidism more than 10 years ago, and just going through that battle. And if any of you have Hashimoto's or have hypothyroidism or are struggling with thyroid issues, you know that there are so many struggles that come along with it. So she struggled with varying symptoms despite being on medications. And after just many years of struggling, she decided to take matters into her own hands. And she gives us all the details and how she did that. In January 2021, she transitioned to plant-based and started incorporating other lifestyle changes into her life. And as I'm sure a lot of you can imagine, incorporating new habits, new behaviors, especially lifestyle related ones like sleep, eating, movement, that can be tough, but she made it work. She immediately started seeing a decrease in the severity of her symptoms. And this past spring in 2022, a year and a half later, she learned, get this, she learned that her Hashimoto's had gone into remission. We'll celebrate that with her big time. She's still working towards healing her remaining hypothyroidism struggles through diet and lifestyle changes. And through her journey, it has become her mission to educate and empower other women in their own thyroid health. This is a subject that is also near and dear to my heart because about, I can't even remember, maybe 7 years ago now, I found out that I had an elevated thyroglobulin antibody, which can eventually lead into hypothyroidism. So currently, I'm working with my doctor to try and figure out holistic ways that we can reduce that number without having to go on medication. And we've seen some positive changes. And so I'm very hopeful that we'll continue progressing in that direction. Please join me in welcoming Allison to the show. Welcome to the show, Allison.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I am really thrilled to talk with you more about your story. So I appreciate you coming onto the show and just being vulnerable and transparent and being open to sharing it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I can't wait to spread my stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more that we're able to share like our own personal struggles, like out into the world on social media and just be vulnerable, like I think the more people can relate to us or know that they're not alone in their own struggles, which is always nice.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you find someone that's going through it too, and they're just a normal person,
Yes.
you just relate so much more. And you're like, okay, this is happening to me. It's not normal, but someone else that's kind of similar to me it's happening to them too.
Yeah. And like you said, there's a lot of like inspiration that you can gain from like listening or watching someone else who's maybe going through something that you're also going through, just to kind of gain some ideas of maybe what you could do, because depending on where you live or what you have access to, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's always helpful for people to share.
Exactly. You don't know what you don't know.
Yes. That's how I felt when I first went plant-based. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And that's when like social media wasn't like super big at that point. And I was like, I'm just gonna go with it.
Yeah. And I'll talk a little about that too, is when I started social media was not, it just wasn't what it was. And
No.
now now you're just so connected. You can find resources, you can find cookbooks, everything. It's easier now.
Yes, much easier. Yeah. Okay. Well, before we get into your story, which I cannot wait to unpack, maybe just give us a little background on who you are, what you do, which I kind of gave the listener a little bit of a preview, but maybe just a little bit more would be great.
Sure. So I'm Allison. I live in upstate New York. I moved here 2 years ago. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. So that's where I'm from. I live here now. I started Empowered Health, which is my health and wellness coaching company, back last October. And so I've been working on that and been working with clients and trying to get some groups started, because I think it's really important that people know what is out there for thyroid health. And that's what I do. And actually, my background, I was a speech pathologist.
No way.
Yeah, before I decided this is what I want to do. I want to be a health and wellness coach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I still do some speech too as well.
Okay. I will
Yeah.
say working in the clinical setting for about maybe 8 years, every single speech pathologist that I worked with was incredible. So I have a fond memories of y'all. Y'all are great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, really quickly, because you're in upstate New York and we're recording this in November, it's like mid-November. Are you all getting like hammered with snow right now?
It is actually snowing out on
Is
the
it
other
really?
side of the river. Yeah.
Okay.
Not enough to stick, but it's been flurrying all on and off all day long.
Yeah. Oh my
Yep, it's
goodness.
happening.
Okay. Yep. I saw it, I think just maybe on social media because I'm down here in Florida at this point that we're recording. And I was like, oh man, that looks really cold.
It's not, yeah.
Okay. So take us back to over a decade now
Mhm.
of like how this kind of journey started for you and what kind of like led to you even like realizing that you had Hashimoto's hypothyroidism.
Yeah, so it was actually accidental that I learned I had it. I was a senior in high school, and it was I want to say it was like January, February around then. So this was back in 2012, and I had a really bad cold, and I couldn't shake this cough. And so I finally decided to go to the pediatrician. They ran some blood tests, and they called, and they were like, "You need to go see an endocrinologist." So I went and saw an endocrinologist. They did more testing, and they said, "Oh, you have something called hypothyroidism, and it's a specific type. It's called Hashimoto's. You have to take this synthetic hormone for the rest of your life." Okay, I'm a senior in high school. I don't know what
Right.
you said to me.
No.
I'm not taking my medicine. I'll take it home, whatever.
Yes.
So I did not, and looking back, this is really bad. I should not have done this, but I did not take my medicine for until I was almost at the end of college. I really didn't take it
Oh,
seriously. And I think part of it was I just didn't know what it was.
yeah.
It wasn't explained to me. Um, and I just didn't care. Like I just didn't know. I didn't feel bad. So I just didn't take my medicine. Looking back now, I definitely did feel bad though.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yes.
definitely had symptoms looking back now. But at the end of college, I started to take it more seriously and I started to take my medication because I was starting to have symptoms. And the worst one was chronic hunger. And some people tell me that's not related to hypothyroidism. Maybe it's not, but that was my absolute worst symptom. I couldn't sleep. My poor college roommate, I'd wake up and be like shoving muffins into my mouth at like 3 in the morning because I was so hungry.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started taking my medicine. And that's when I really noticed that I have symptoms, fatigue, weight gain, trouble losing weight. And I was a D1 athlete. I played soccer in college. So it was kind of like, I'm working out all the time. I'm eating what I thought at the time was healthy.
Of
Um,
course.
but it's not really working for me. Like I'm gaining weight. And so after I graduated college, I went to grad school. And during that time, I went to see my endocrinologist because I had to go annually. And I asked her, like, do you think diet has anything to do with my thyroid health? Because I'm having symptoms now. This medication's not really working for me. And she said, no, it has nothing to do with it. And I said,
Mm.
okay, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so
No.
I said, okay. And then next year I go back and I had read some more stuff and it now is becoming more popular. Like you shouldn't eat gluten if you have Hashimoto's. You should avoid this if you have Hashimoto's. So I went and someone was covering and I asked her, do you think diet has anything to do with my thyroid symptoms? And she laughed at me and kind of huffed and said, stop trying to be a celebrity. Don't believe everything you hear. And I was really crushed
Wow.
after that because I thought, I'm just trying to this was before social media was even big. Like, I'm not trying to be an influencer. I just
Right.
truly am trying to figure out for myself. I mean, this was like 7 years ago. So I don't even know. Yeah, I think I had Instagram at that point, but it wasn't like I wasn't, so no one was trying to be a celebrity.
Yeah.
And that was really discouraging for me. But I thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep trying to figure this out because the other part was every year I went back, my TSH levels were high despite being on medication. So my dosage had to increase. And I kept every year I'd go back, I'm 22, I'm 23, I'm 24. Why is this happening?
Right.
And no one could explain it. And I thought, I'm otherwise healthy, but this keeps going up. So something is wrong. Something is going on. And I started to make some dietary changes, trying not to eat as much processed food, trying to eat fruits and vegetables, but I was still eating meat. I was still eating, honestly, probably a lot of processed foods, and drinking a lot of alcohol on the weekend because,
You're
I
young.
learned yet that was
Yep.
not a good thing to do. And I went to a new endocrinologist in Philadelphia. So I actually went into the city. I thought, okay, bigger hospital, maybe they'll be able to tell me more. And I said, I'm really having trouble losing weight. And he said, I'll put you on a weight loss pill. And I was like,
Oh,
I
wow.
don't want a weight loss pill. I want to
Yeah.
know what's going on. And that to me, at that point, my medication was the second highest from the top dosage. And I was like, what else do I do after I get to the top?
Right. What do you do?
I take a pill and a half. I don't know. And
Yeah.
so that was scary to me. And that's really when I thought, I need to figure this out. And so you probably know who this is, but Earthy Andy. You know Earthy
Yes.
Andy on
Uh-huh.
Instagram? Okay, so
Yep.
I was a huge fan of her, still am a huge fan of her. But this was before she was popular. This was when she was just kind of blogging still. And she said that she had healed her hypothyroidism by going plant-based. And I thought, okay, I'll try it. So I tried it, and this was 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. So a few years had gone by since I was diagnosed. And I tried it, and I tried plant-based, and I was plant-based during the week. And then I would binge whatever I wanted on the weekend. That did not work either.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I didn't know how to go plant-based. So I wasn't eating beans. I wasn't eating tofu. I don't really know where I was getting my protein from. I think I ate a lot of bread, a lot of pasta. And so it was vegan, but it wasn't plant-based whole foods.
Right. And so when someone asks you, like, where do you get your protein? You're genuinely like, I don't know.
I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
And I knew
Yep.
it wasn't. And it wasn't the right fit for me at the time because I ended up losing my period and just didn't feel great. And I went to the endocrinologist and my levels were still high. And I thought, okay, this isn't working. Then COVID happened, and that was everyone just
Yes.
bad time for everyone. And so then in January of 2021, I decided, you know what? I've been kind of leading up to being fully plant-based. I just haven't been eating meat on certain days. I've been just incorporating more fruits and vegetables. And I went fully plant-based in 2021, January of 2021. And it was the best decision I ever could have made because I went to the endocrinologist in May, a new one up here. And she said, we can actually lower your dosage. Like, it's too high. And I thought, oh my God.
Finally.
This is working for me. And so she put me on a lower one. She said, okay, I'll give you 3 months, come back, we'll do your blood work to make sure it's stable. It was stable. And I said, you know what? I'm actually like really fidgety. My legs are restless. I'm kind of anxious, which are symptoms of being over medicated. And so she said, well, you know what? Your levels are fine. I said, but I want to go down in dosage. And she said, okay, fine, let's do that. Go ahead.
Well, no, so you kind of like advocated for yourself in a way of like, this is what I want to do. Is that what you did?
Yeah, because I said, okay, my levels are normal, but I don't feel right. I feel like I can't settle down. And that's a symptom of being over medicated.
How did you know that? Because I'm sure that's the case for probably a lot of people and they don't know where their symptoms are coming from. How did you kind of associate how you were feeling with being over medicated, or those were like the symptoms?
So I had Googled it actually, just like,
Okay.
I don't know if I'm taking too much thyroid medication. And the reason I had done that is because I had been actively trying to lower it.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you weren't actively trying to lower it, you would necessarily know that that's a side effect of too much medication.
Yeah.
So that's how I figured that. And then another 3 months went by, and after she lowered it again, and I was fine. So I said, so I did know my body.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to the springtime this year, I actually started working with Parsley Health out of Manhattan. I'm not sure if you're. So there was, her name is Dr. Robin Burrs, and she started this practice, and it's all MDs and health coaches, but they focus on holistic health. And so I thought, I'm getting married next January, so I thought I want to be like the best health I can be. So this past January 22, I signed up with them. And she was like, I love that you're plant forward. That's what she calls it. Forward. Which was great because I paired with her. I didn't know she was plant forward, as she calls it.
Oh, so she also was.
Yeah, so she was. So she was like, She was like, this is great. Like, this is how you're going to heal yourself. So I started with them in January. I had blood work done in, I want to say like March or April. And at my second meeting with her, she said, you don't have any thyroid antibodies. You don't have Hashimoto's anymore. And I was like, I must have asked her 10 times in that meeting, are you sure I don't have Hashimoto's anymore? Like, are you sure you're reading
Yes.
that right? So I had healed my Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease.
Wow. And so it
Yeah.
went into remission. Your numbers looked great.
Yeah. So my Hashimoto's in remission. So that's the autoimmune part. I still do have a little bit of hypothyroidism, but I'm actively working on that. The doctor that I'm working with thinks that it's just my liver being bogged down. I'm not
Yeah.
converting the hormones correctly. So she actually stopped my medicine a few weeks ago, and I'm getting retested tomorrow. I wish I knew
Oh,
before this podcast, but
okay. You have to report back.
yeah, to see where I stand. And she said, because of all those years you didn't take care of it, she's very blunt with me, because of all those years you didn't take care of it, you might never be able to fully come off, but
Sure.
because just your tissues might be damaged. But the fact that you don't have symptoms and you don't have the autoimmune piece of it anymore is huge.
Yeah.
Celebrate that. And
Oh my gosh.
that's what I want people to know, is there's so much you can actually do.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
nutrition plays such a large
Yep.
role in that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. I have so many questions for you, Allison.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so going back to when you were 18 and you were initially
Mhm.
diagnosed or went to the endocrinologist,
Yep.
what do you know, like what I mean, obviously, like you were kind of like probably like glazed over, like, I don't know what you're saying, but like, do you know what labs they took to like diagnose you with that or kind of
Mhm.
how that went? And maybe you could explain to like those listening of like maybe what is used to diagnose Hashimoto's or
Mhm.
hypothyroidism. That would be helpful.
Sure. So back then I did not know, but now having, researched this and learned about it for a while now, they look at TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone. They look at T4, T3, and then for Hashimoto's, they look at thyroid antibodies. So if you have thyroid antibodies present and a high level of TSH, that is indicative of Hashimoto's.
Okay.
So if your antibodies are not present, but you still have high levels of TSH, it just might be hypothyroidism.
Okay. And I think this is a good reminder, even for you listening, or if you know someone who is struggling with their thyroid, it is always helpful, like Allison is saying, to get the full spectrum of thyroid labs done, right? Because doesn't that give you like a clear picture of what's going on?
Exactly. It can just give you more in depth of what is actually going on and help you with finding root cause.
Okay. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think, Allison, I really appreciate you just saying that, you went to several doctors who were kind of like, diet has nothing to do with your thyroid, or kind of laughing at you in a way, like, which is, I just feel like the fact that you kind of still pressed on to like
Mhm.
figure out, okay, something is not right with my body. And you did your research and eventually it sounds like you found a doctor that like fits really well with your beliefs.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but what was that? I mean, that was a long time. That was years of kind of just
Years.
this like banging your head against the wall almost of like just
Yeah.
not getting answers. So what was that like? And how did you kind of persevere through that?
It is super, super frustrating. And I feel for any female who's going through it right now, because something's wrong, but
Mm,
someone who, and it's not to knock doctors, but no one was sitting down and saying, this is what's going on. It's actually a gut issue and you need to heal your gut, instead of looking at it just as a thyroid disorder. And so it's super frustrating when you're gaining weight, but you're working out and you're eating what you think is healthy and you're still gaining weight, you can't lose weight. It's like, why do I even try?
right.
What's the point anymore? And there was times I was like that. Like, why do I guess this is just always how I'm gonna be. And
Hmm.
it's not a great mindset, because then you kind of just spiral downward.
Yeah.
And, I was looking at it, like, I'm 25, 26, 27, now I'm 28. Like, I don't want to live like this. I want to be active and not be fatigued, and feel good in myself. And not that you have to be thin to feel good, but it was like I'm putting in all this time and I'm not seeing the results. So
Yeah.
it's super frustrating. And for a while, I just was like, well, this is it. But then when I started seeing things on social media, and Earthy Andy was really a big inspiration for me, because it was someone who was not from a medical background, not a celebrity. She just was someone who was telling her story and figuring it out. That inspired me a lot. And every time I would feel down about it, I'd go back and look at her page and just like loved looking at like her smoothies and stuff. And then, 2 or 3 years ago, that's when I really started reading research articles and having conversations with people who have healed themselves, not necessarily from hypothyroidism, but from other autoimmune diseases. And that was really inspiring to me. And then when I came across Parsley Health out of Manhattan, I thought, wow, like instantly I knew this is what I'm supposed to do. Like I'm supposed to help people learn about this. And that was it. I just was on a mission. I still am on a mission. I will talk to anybody and anyone who will listen about this. And so I guess I kind of found it strength to keep fighting for myself from within, but also from a few outside people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I should mention too, my fiance, he really,
Aw.
he really wants me to just find health and happiness.
Yeah. Kind of encouraging you to keep
Yeah.
seeking answers.
Keep seeking answers, to not give up.
Yeah.
He's very non-conventional himself. He quit teaching to start his own company and has been very successful. And so that was, he was like, you can do this. You can,
Yeah.
like, you can find the answers. These answers. Like when I listen to other people's podcasts, I'm like saying what they're going to say next. And he's like, see, you know this, like you
Yeah.
need to spread your message. So yeah, so I guess within and outside people, but I do feel for anyone going through it.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah. It
It
does. Yep.
really, really sucks.
Yep, it does. It sucks to not be heard. It sucks to not be listened to. It sucks to like kind of like what you were doing, fighting for years to find answers. And when there weren't any, when there wasn't really social media to like connect with other people who were also going through what you were going through.
Mhm.
Retrospectively, like looking back when you were 18, was there any reason like you had this diagnosis first versus like maybe one of your friends, or like looking back, did you kind of like be like, oh, okay, this kind of makes sense?
I've gone over that so many times and I can't think of an exact event that happened. And I do know that in order to have an autoimmune disease, you have to have a genetic predisposition, which I know I do because I have a maternal aunt and a maternal cousin who also have Hashimoto's.
Mm.
So I knew I already had that. And then you have to have an environmental trigger and then leaky gut. So obviously I had that genetic predisposition and I was not eating plant-based. My stomach gut was not healthy, but I can't think of a specific environmental trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I wish I could because maybe I could help myself sooner, but I don't know.
Right. Yep. Well, and the reason I ask is I actually have, this is why this story was so interesting to me, is because I have an elevated antibody, and my
Okay.
doctor, we like did this like timeline thing, and she thinks it happened when I was in grad school, but the same with me. I couldn't identify like a
Mhm.
trigger, like an environmental trigger that would have like thrown this thing out of whack. I do know my gut was incredibly messed up because I lived off of like meat and dairy my whole
Yep.
childhood. So
Yeah. Yep.
yes. So
Yeah.
we're getting there slowly but surely. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did the transition go? You're a speech pathologist. You're trying to
Mhm.
figure out, what's going on with your own body while also helping other people. But how
Mhm.
did this transition go of like, okay, I, in a way, and I'm putting words in your mouth, like I was maybe diagnosed with this for a reason to help other people figure their own path out. So I guess how did the transition go into maybe starting your own business to help other people as well?
Mhm. So I don't think of it as like I got Hashimoto's for a reason. I think it just happened. And from that, I created a way to help people.
Mm,
I don't think I was, destined to get it for that reason. I just think it happened and I am trying to make the most of it and heal myself. The transition happened when I was looking at Parsley's page at their health and wellness coaches and I saw what they do and I instantly thought, wow, this is what I really want to do. And I still am a speech pathologist. I still have my license and I still treat. And for anyone if any parents are listening or anything, I still do like it. It's just it's not my passion. My passion became this health and wellness coaching. And I just think it's so important. I think people are so sick
mm,
and it's become so normal and you don't know that it's normal until you feel healthy.
yeah.
And so I took on a few clients. They were free clients because I thought that's how you had to start a business.
Yep.
So that's what I did. And I saw, and not all of them had thyroid disorders, but they all saw success in just daily routine, incorporating more fruits and vegetables, not necessarily going fully plant-based, although I would have loved that, but you have to meet people where they are, but just eating more plant-based, incorporating some beans into their day. And I saw success with that. And then I created the company, Empowered Health, and took me a while to be comfortable with social media.
Oh, yes.
That is a scary, scary part, scary world, because you're going to be judged no matter what you post.
Yep.
And so I created the business, but I hadn't been doing social media, and I wasn't taking off. I wasn't finding people. And so I really started posting on social media about two months ago, I think. And I really was like, okay, I need to make this work because this is what I want. So I still do speech for most of my day. And then I come home and I do health and wellness coaching, and, content filming and research and all of that. So I'm still doing both, but I eventually am working towards health and wellness coaching full time.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think it's a good reminder, even for you listening, that just because like your passion out of school or whatever was one thing, doesn't mean that that has to be your one and only passion for the rest of your
Right.
life. It
Yeah,
can
that's
it
really
can
true.
shift. Yeah. I think that's really, really neat. I want to go back to Allison to your story and when you were transitioning to plant-based, how that was for you, like maybe what struggles came up and how you kind of worked through that to going from like, eating the standard American diet to being plant-based like during the week to doing it full time. How did that go?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing was finding variety. So it was, okay, you have tofu and beans and tempeh, but how do you flavor them? And how do you have variety? Like, I don't want to have the same thing I have every day. So that took some time to learn, and to learn the tricks of like use nutritional yeast for this, use canned coconut milk, use coconut aminos, just different things to flavor. And I still think I'm learning that, just how to flavor things and how to cook things so that way they taste pleasurable.
Mhm.
And so that was a hard thing at first, was just knowing what to cook and how to cook it. And I'm sure this is true for many people. Another hard thing was telling people that I was plant-based,
Yes.
and their reaction
Yeah.
to that. And I do have very supportive people, which I'm lucky. They're not plant-based, but I have a lot of health conscious friends, and they respect it. And if we go somewhere, they always make sure there's an option for me, or they'll make something that's an option, or I'll bring something. So they've been really supportive. But it definitely was like a raised eyebrow. Like, what do you mean you're gonna go plant-based? Like,
Oh, yeah.
that's not what our family does. We're
Mhm.
not. And my dad always jokes, well, you could just go. And it's out of the goodness of his heart. He's not serious because he helps make stuff all the time. But, you could just go out in the backyard and eat the grass.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. And just other families saying like, well, you have to live a little. And
Mhm.
that's that drives me bonkers, because this is me living. This is
Yeah.
me living my best life. I'm healthy. My gut is healed. I lost weight. I'm happier. I'm less fatigued. I just feel good. This is my living. My living is not eating cookies and chips on the weekend, or a whole spare rib. Like, that's not living to me anymore. So
Yeah.
that piece of people, and I still think people don't fully understand, and they kind of come at you.
Yeah.
So that's a difficult thing. But I think if you know inside that this is the right decision for you and it's working for you to be plant-based, then it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what other people think, because this is you. And if you find that your decision isn't working for you, it's okay to switch, to figure things out differently, but don't change just because other people are giving you a
Mm.
hard time for it.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Yes, I could not agree more. Yeah. Well, and like you said earlier, like you thought you felt pretty good in college, but then looking
Yeah.
back, you're like, oh wow, I feel way better
Yeah.
now. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm curious because you have other family members who have hypothyroidism, if there has been much conversation around kind of your own personal journey, or if that is maybe just swept under the rug and not talked about.
So I do talk to my one cousin about it, because I know she struggles as well.
Yeah.
And so we do have those conversations, but it just has been harder, I think, for her to go plant-based. I'm just,
Yeah.
I don't know if she's necessarily open to it, or it is hard. She has a whole family, then the whole family would have to go plant-based because she, there's only one person cooking. My other family member, we didn't talk about it because eating, like a ton of meat and dairy that's not going to change for her. And it's just not even, it's not even in the question. So part of it is people have to be open too.
Yes.
Because as well as I know, there are some people who are just flat out, they don't want to acknowledge the facts. They don't want to see it, or even just be open to a different way of thinking and eating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's kind of where you're at right now, is you're helping people find a solution for people who actually are looking for one, or like you said, are open-minded to trying something different or trying something that they haven't tried before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how does that work? When you're seeing clients, maybe what are some common struggles that you see with them, or some things that you kind of help them out with as their coach?
Mm-hmm. So the most common I see are fatigue. Don't know how to structure my routine in my day, and I can't lose weight, or I'm gaining weight despite eating healthy and working out all the time.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other thing in itself, is working out all the time. But so those are usually the most common ones I see. I also do see a lot of reflux. I have a lot of acid reflux, or I binge on the weekend. That's another one too, is I have trouble kind of controlling that. So those are the problems I usually see the most. And that's for thyroid people, and also for people with just general health issues. And so I just write very small. Let's just start, tell me what you eat in a week. And if they don't eat any fruit, I say, okay, eat berries twice a week. That's it. Just one box of berries. It could be half a box. If that's too much for you, we'll scale it back next week. If they're eating more fruits and vegetables, and it's a good amount and they like it, okay, why don't you try beans once with your meat? Just try it with your meat. Just put a little on your plate. Or maybe take the yogurt out and try something else. So it's very small steps. And I think that's what makes people, my clients, successful and sustainable, and not feeling like they're missing out, because they start to make very small incremental changes, and then they just want to make better changes. They feel good on those small changes, and it leads to bigger changes. And if you start too big, I find people are like, it's not working. I'll do it for 3 days, and then it's not going to work. And that's not sustainable. My whole thing is, in order to heal, you're kind of always battling Hashimoto's. Once you have that predisposition and you've had it, it's in remission, but it can come back if you don't take care of your gut. So I'm looking for sustainability with my clients as well. So small incremental steps. And then usually they have a perspective shift, like, oh, I never thought I couldn't eat cheese. And now when I eat cheese, I realize I feel icky. Let's try taking that out for a little, and see, if you really can do without it. And sometimes they can, and sometimes they can't. And so they do it once or twice a week. But you have to be, work them up to wanting to do it themselves. Because if you and some people respond to this, if you say, just do this, take this out, you can't eat it. Some people do, most people don't. Yeah. So it's looking at their perspective and kind of helping them, facilitating it, but they make their own perspective shift about what they're eating and how it helps them. And it goes the same for sleep and exercise too. What we've been taught about food and exercise is not what works for everyone. Everyone is different. So the same thing is not going to work for everyone. So I think it's helping people realize that too. Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good reminder. And it sounds like too, you're helping your clients and just listen more to their body and how they're feeling, depending on what they're eating or how much they're sleeping or moving too, which can make a massive difference. Yeah. Yeah. If someone's listening and they're kind of where you were in your early 20s, where you're kind of going from a couple doctors, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to get at the root cause of what's going on with your labs, what kind of advice would you give to someone who feels like they're kind of in that same situation, as like they're not really getting answers, whether they have something related to Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, or they have something else that they're struggling with? Sure. So I would say, one, don't give up just because doctors are telling you there's nothing else you can do, and you can only take a medication for the rest of your life. Definitely take your medication. But in the meantime, let's figure out what else is going on. And then two, I would look for someone who has had success with their own story, who is not just this is the way you have to do it, but here are some guiding principles. Let's figure out how they fit into your life. And making sure it's someone reputable, because what works for someone isn't necessarily going to work for someone else. But if someone is only pushing that one thing or only trying to sell something,
Yes.
that can be more damaging than helpful. And I'm not a medical doctor either. I'm a health wellness coach, but I do have my own story, and I am more open to helping you figure out what works for you versus just one size fits all. And I do have a certification for health and wellness coaching. So just making sure you're looking for people who have a background, who aren't just out there to influence, they're there to actually help. And then keeping an open mind. So what you've been taught, and might not be what works for you. And so just because it's the norm in society does not mean you have to follow it. And you can try something, and if it's not working for you, you can try something else, but don't give up and don't fall into those society trends or diet trends. Look at something that's going to be sustainable for you.
Yeah. Yeah, because just because it's something that we've always done or that multiple doctors have told you doesn't mean that it's like the one true and only answer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We all are given the same medication, but we're also different. So how does that work? It's a
Ooh,
Band-Aid. So if we're all different and we all eat different exercises, but we're all given the same exact synthetic hormone, it's not
yeah.
gonna work for everybody.
Wow. Huh. I've actually never thought of that. I really appreciate that perspective. You're so right. Huh. And I think going back to what you said too, like that this, especially when you're finding other people who have similar stories, it really is important to know that it's not a one size fits all, that there are a lot of different approaches that you can take. And just because one person has this successful story doesn't mean that the exact thing that they did is going to apply to you as well. So I think that's a good reminder too of continuing to just advocate for yourself, use people as inspiration, and kind of figure things out for yourself and your health.
Right. And there are some, guiding principles. Like, I do believe plant-based is the best option. It's the best option for me, and it definitely healed me along with some other changes. But I think even just someone who maybe only eats meat 3 times a week, that's an effort, that's trying, and
Yeah.
that needs to be applauded as well. So don't feel discouraged if it's like, I can't go plant-based fully from the
Yeah.
start. That's okay. That's okay. You don't have to be the perfect vegan.
Yep. Yep.
You just want to be eating more plants, and then maybe you eventually switch over.
Yes. There was a quite a while where I actually believed everyone had to be like 100% plant-based like right away, and that's when I personally first went plant-based, and I had chronic constipation for 20 some years, and then it was like gone, and I was like, everyone needs to do this. It's like the quote perfect diet, but you're right, meeting people where they're at, which you've said multiple times. I think I just appreciate that so much because it is so true. And
Mhm.
even little changes are going to add up to big results over time. Like they have an impact. Well, Allison, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Where is the best place that people can connect with you on social media if they're interested in working with you or just want to continue to follow your journey?
Sure. So you could check out my Instagram. It's Empowered Health LLC. And then I also have a website, empoweredhealthllc.com, and you can fill out, I do free 15-minute health consultations. So you can submit a form and we can chat and see if it's something you'd be interested in. But those are the two best ways.
Wonderful. And we've included those in the show notes. So you can just click those below if you want to follow Allison or get in touch with Allison. That will be the best way to do it. Again, Allison, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you and I appreciate you being vulnerable.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Ashley. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time. Until next time, keep thriving.